Hey there, everyone. I'm Tony from the Marathon Mates, and this is the Wolf-tastical episode that Tim promised us last week. Do you love running with your dogs? On this episode, we are going to learn all about running with dogs. We're going to discuss the do's, the don'ts, and everything in between. Don't hit that pause button. You might find this a bit rough. Are you ready to run? Let's go.
Welcome to the thrilling world of the Flying Runr, brought to you by the Marathon Mates.
Hey there, everyone. I'm Tony, and welcome to episode 83 of the Flying Runr. I really do apologize about that opening intro. We promise it won't be so rough. Tonight, we are doing something a little different. We're going to be chatting about dogs, especially running with your dog. You are in for a treat, as Tara is going to share with us her do's and don'ts for running with dogs. So while it's hard to know for sure, estimates suggest that about 5% of runners typically run with their dogs. And this number, and if you go to any park run, you're going to see that percentage in play. It does rely heavily on location and type of event, time of the year, and all of that sort of stuff. So tonight we're going to have a chat about what you need to know if you are the sort of runner who loves to run with their dogs. But before we do that, as usual, I'm joined by my co-host, the king of puns, beside me with Tim. We've got Tara and Lucia down there on the lower half of the screen. And of course, Lucia was gallivanting around the tennis last night and was very late coming back. So we're actually recording this the day after we normally record. So now before I ask how we've all been, last week in response to one of our listeners, I think Tara shared the strategy around how she trained during the week. This week, let's kick it off with Lucia. Lucia, let's hear a little bit about you. Now, I don't know what your week looked like because you were in Melbourne and back and in Melbourne, so I don't know how much training you got done last week, but what is a normal, typical week when you're, say, in the middle of a training block look like?
Now, are we talking about a pre-training block or a normal training block? I just want to establish the facts.
This is you're in the middle of the training block.
Okay,
so
perfect.
There's no such thing as a pre-week, Lucia. We've talked about this.
No, I'm going to address this right now. I am, because my extensive research indicates that between 20 and 30% of training plans, including the likes of Nike, include what I would call a pre-week. So whether it's a preparation week or whether it's week 0, it is the week where you are preparing to take on your marathon plan. And just because we have one member of the panel that mocks that idea does not mean it is not a good idea. So it's not just me. The stats are very clear. It is a growing trend. And there are a couple of very good articles on our website at flyingrunner.com that share some of that research. And now that I've got that out of the way, and we will not hear from Tim mocking the idea of a pre-week, Lucia, we're talking about in the middle of a training block.
So this week I have been in and out of Sydney, but ironically, all my runs the past week were in Melbourne, including Albert Parkrun. So I do like that one when I'm in Melbourne. So there was, by the time I crossed, because I did it with a friend and we were doing walk run intervals, I came in at number 1,030. and there was still a fair chunk of people behind me. The week prior, they had about 1,300.
Wow.
For our listeners that haven't done Albert Park Parkrun before, it's centrally located in Melbourne. You can get there via the tram, or if not, if you're staying right in the heart of the city, it's only about 2.5, 3 k's. It's a one loop, and you actually cover some of the parts of the Melbourne F1 circuit, which is why I like it. It can get a bit congested at times, just based on the numbers. Volunteers are great, and they've got a really good system at the end. So that was my long run on Saturday. What a normal week would look like for me is Tuesday with my run club is sprint work. So I do a lot of my training in Sydney at Centennial Park because I'm very, very local to that. So there, and that park, you can, like, your training, it can vary so much. You can, like, if you want to do flat hill work, there are so many options to do so. So that one can alternate between a bit of hill work with sprints, or if not, today, which I didn't go to, I will admit, it was a bit of fartlek training, but broken 1600 meter ones, and then a 90-second interval. And on a Thursday, we do hills again in Centennial Park. It can vary. Some hills are steeper than others, and as soon as the Thursday coach tells us kind of which area to go, and it's like, oh no, not that hill. But as much as they're painful, they help. So yeah, so my Tuesdays and Thursdays are sprint and hill work. Then on Saturday, sometimes I do run club on a Saturday, but not all the time. Then Sunday is generally my longer run, and all depending where I'm at in my training cycle, it will depend if it's a flat one or if not, or if I will do a bit more hills. I try and do at least 1 or 2 hills in most long runs, unless I'm really feeling tired or anything or something like that, because it's still, like, I find by building that momentum with the hills on race day, you know it's going to come, but it's better to get used to it prior. So, and then on a Wednesday, I do strength training, but I need to ramp up the strength training when I start my official GC quaddy training, and also do a bit more cardio. So whether that be a spin, like a spin bike class, even contemplating a bit of Pilates.
Wow. That's a full-on week, Luch.
Yeah, keeps my sanity sometimes.
Hey,
Now, Luch, can I just ask a very quick question about Run Club? Because
Yes.
is that the Sydney Marathon Run Club?
No.
Okay.
So my run club is part of the gym that I go to, but Sydney Marathon Run Club, they are going to be happening, I believe it's about once a month. The next one is on the 23rd of February, and I will be at that one. And what they're also doing is for people who missed out on entries, I've been told that they're giving away 3 entries at each of the run clubs. So for any of our listeners that missed out on a spot in Sydney, make sure you keep an eye on the Sydney Marathon socials and on Strava. Attend the run clubs with a chance to hopefully win a spot for Sydney.
And that's purely Sydney-based, those run clubs?
Correct. I believe they will be expanding. I know they did some in Melbourne and Brizzy, but they haven't been announced yet.
Tim, I cut you off.
Yeah, that's right. Just quickly on Albert Parkrun. So on the weekend, they had 1,101 finishes. They've had 5 events where they've gone over 1,000 runners in their history, and they've been going for 623 events. So 5 out of 623 have gone over 1,000. The last 3 weeks at Albert Parkrun have all been over 1,000 finishes. So last weekend, 1,101. The weekend before, their most ever finishes, 1,316. And the week prior to that, 1,114. So it just shows how big running is becoming across the world. And we've noticed it at parkruns we go to, that they're a lot busier than normal. It's that let's get fit for the new year. Let's lose a few kilos. Let's do something fit and active. But yeah, pretty phenomenal to see big numbers coming out everywhere.
I know out my way there's a lot of parkruns now not advertising, but posting up in those community pages.
Yes.
And it was the first time last week that I saw a post for the Redlands Parkruns in a community group, and that brought 55 first timers to the group. Just
Wow.
they're putting it down to that post, so that's pretty impressive. Tim, Tara, how was your training? Let's start with Tim.
Oh, me? Okay. Well, I picked it up during the week. I was doing my normal runs in the mornings and runs on Tuesday nights during the midweek, about 5-6 Ks, most of those runs each. And then, Mitchelton Parkrun on Saturday. So my strategy on Parkrun days is at the moment to go a little bit quicker and try and push myself a little bit harder. And then Sunday was my typical long run, 21 Ks, put it in the bank. Worry about the distance improving next week when I start to step it up from 21 Ks to 24 Ks once we hit February. So, yeah, I'll talk more about my strategy probably next week.
Excellent. Tara?
Yeah, so I went with one of my friends. She's actually got a new puppy, so that obviously ties in really well with today's topic. But he's now 17 weeks old, but she's also got a 7-year-old dog as well. So we went for a walk together, and I was just teaching her some tips and tricks on how to keep them together and walk, so she can walk both dogs together. So that was a slow one. I think it was Tuesday, Wednesday morning. Ran with some friends the next morning. Parkrun Mitchelton. Mitchelton Parkrun was absolutely huge. So I think they got like nearly 600 runners, and they normally sit around about the 300 mark. So, and they've been consistently like that for the start of this year as well. So as Tim said, it must be an increase in numbers. Sunday, I just did 15 Ks. I just was not up for doing 21. I just ran, walked, sort of talked and stopped, and yeah, you know what I'm like. Yeah.
Excellent. We started launch week 1 of our training block, and
That's another new name.
I'm calling it
Launch
launch week. I'm launching into the training block. So, and I've got no research to back that up. But week 1, let's call it week 1. Week 1 of the training block, 40, just over 40 kilometers for the week. I was pretty happy with that. Longest run was 11, just over 11 on Saturday. But the pleasing thing for me is I ran Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 3 days in a row. Felt pretty good. Today's been a good rest day. Ran intervals there on Tuesday night, and that showed improvement on the previous week. And yeah, so it started. I've got a 23-week program to Gold Coast. And I'm going to lose 2 weeks because I'm going to have some cataract surgery. So I'm not allowed to run for 2 weeks after having that. So I will be walking those 2 weeks, and I'll drop the distance back down. So I had to reshape the progression of the long run between then and now. So I hope to be around that 21 by the time I have that surgery, and then 2 weeks of just doing some mild walks and then getting straight back into it. So outside of that, really exciting week. Sharon got her Honolulu parcel, her 3 T-shirts and 4 medals. I wish I could show you, but they are Sharon. So I will wait until my parcel arrives, and I'm still waiting. Thank you, UPS or US, whatever they call it. But shirts look great and the medals look awesome. So that's it. That's the week. So let's. It's that time of the week, of course, and you'd have to be barking up the wrong tree not to know about this. This is the news segment. So Tim, what's been happening around the world of running over the past few days?
Thanks, Tony. First article I've got here is on the women's world record holder for the marathon, Ruth Chepngetich. It's been announced recently she's now suffering from a malaria infection. Last weekend, she missed the podium on a 10K Athletics Kenya Prisons Cross Country Championship in Ruru in Kenya. She revealed that she was bedridden the day before the race with malaria and was surprised that she was even able to get up, let alone cross the finish line. She says, I did not expect to complete the race because I was sick. On Friday, I struggled to wake up in the morning, but I had to do my best because this is work. Malaria put me down, but I will get better. Now, I know you've probably got the times in front of you there, guys, but what do you reckon she could do with malaria over 10Ks? She finished 4th overall, but what do you reckon her time would have been?
I'm going to go 32:33 minutes.
33 minutes and 9 seconds for 10Ks, which is just crazy. Now, I guess the biggest concern I've got is we're about 12 weeks away from London or thereabouts. And we talked last week about how we're going to have this massive women's field there. I'm a little bit concerned, I guess, about Ruth's ability to train at top level with malaria infection in her body. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there and whether or not she actually does compete over the 42Ks.
I think it's going to be interesting. I dare say, okay, I'm going to put it out there, but I think she's going to surprise everyone.
Yeah, I don't know what the basis for that would be, but if you've got malaria, I know it takes you down for a long time. So, yeah, be interesting.
Yeah, anything is plausible.
All right, on that note, I'm moving to the next bit of news. Joshua Cheptegei is one of the all-time greats on the running track. He's won world championships, Olympic gold medals in the most notably for the 10,000 meters, but he's also competed over the 5,000 meters on the track. He's announced during the week that he is going to run his second ever marathon. He's going to run it in Tokyo in just over 4 weeks' time. He, as I said, is an absolute legend on the track, but has done a marathon once before in Valencia in 2023. He ran a respectable 2:08:59 and came 37th overall. And at that time, he said that the marathon has no respect for people. So, in other words, it doesn't matter who you are, you get found out. And whilst he was great on the track, and it was somebody that I always wanted to see as a crossover, I've always had a lot of respect for Cheptegei and seen what he's done on the track and thought that he'd be able to make the crossover. It'll be interesting, I think, guys, to see what he does in Tokyo. I'm hoping he's taking the learnings from Valencia and uses that to improve in Tokyo. But like Safan Hussein, Tony, he's a racer. He's somebody who likes to get out there and really compete. So I'm going to be interested to see what he does in Tokyo. Hopefully, fingers crossed, he comes up at that level.
You're seeing this happen more and more, track people moving into the marathon. Yep. And, we saw it with Inga Britson and, it just keeps happening. So the marathon has got this real appeal. And I actually really like that quote, that the marathon has got no respect for people. And I would 100% agree. But it's awesome to see these great runners at track and 10K distance having a crack. I think it really just it continues just to highlight how great the marathon is.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting, and I can't wait to see him in Tokyo competing. And the last bit of news, guys, I know, but we all know Tara really loves the bananas when she's running. Well, during the week here in Australia, the Australian Broadcasting Commission, ABC, printed an article about the tennis that happened in Melbourne, the Australian Open. It stated that the Australian Open tennis players are fueled by more than 200 kilograms of bananas every day, that the players love eating the bananas and find that they are packed with essential nutrients for generating energy during a match. They contain carbohydrates for energy, fiber to help absorb the nutrients, and minerals such as magnesium and potassium to keep the muscle cramps at bay. In addition to fueling your muscles, the article also said that it powers your brain in terms of concentration and decision making, which is why the tennis players love it and gives them that instant boost. And I know, Tara, you are an awesomely big fan of the banana when you're running your longer races. And I guess this is proving again that it's not just something that we're saying, it's something that elite sports people are out there saying it. So bananas really are something that makes a difference. And Tara, I know they definitely make a difference for you.
Yeah, they sure do. Like, I don't know about the decision-making things, because if they did a good job at that, I wouldn't be running marathons. But I must admit, a good banana at 30 Ks does help for the last 12. So, yeah.
Yep, 100%. Alrighty, Tony, and that's the news this week.
I think that deserves a round of applause.
Oh, no. Can we please stop?
Please note, none of this is scripted in the run sheet. This is all Tony doing it off his own bat.
Yeah, all right. I'm
So
so
he's trying to become the
fortunate.
new Tim.
All right. Thanks, Tim, for the news. And now it's time for the main topic this week. This is called Running with Dogs. As always, any advice provided tonight is just that advice, which is based on our knowledge and our experience. We're not, well, I certainly am not an expert. I'm an expert at asking Tara some questions, which we'll be doing very shortly, but it's just our experience. To support what we're saying, Tara will do most of the talking tonight. For those that don't know, Tara has a degree in animal science as well as experience gained working with domestic animals for close to 25 years. And that's within the vet industry. In addition, she spent the last 3 or so years specifically working in the animal behavioral side of things. So she actually does know a little thing or two around tonight's topic. And she's unfortunately had to deal with the after effects of dogs who've been pushed too far by their owners. I know for Tara, she often sees a parkrun or on her long runs, people who are struggling to understand their dog's behaviors and or their fitness capabilities. So hopefully many of our listeners can get something out of tonight. Tara's one of those special people that talks about dogs per kilometre as part of their running journey. So I think tonight will be very special. So tonight we're going to ask the questions. We're going to rotate around the room. I will not do any more puns, so I will take you out of your misery for that, because now it's time to get serious. So are you ready to go, Tara?
I am.
Okay. Tara, the only time I've ever tried to run with a dog, and it was my son's dog, and Milton was a chocolate Labrador, and I think I almost ended up with a dislocated shoulder. So I'm really keen to hear all about what we're going to be talking about tonight. So before I started that run with Milton, and before anyone thinks about running with their dog, what sort of checks should you be doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, you should always get a health check done with your vet, and that's the vet that knows your dog as well. You want to make sure that your dog is fit and healthy enough to actually be running. It's a bit like a human. You can't just assume that you can run 10 Ks with your dog just because you can run 10 Ks. You can't assume that your dog can. So definitely consider your dog's personality and temperament, and their physical health beforehand. So if they're not a social dog, then it's probably not a good idea to run with them where there's lots of other dogs and stuff like that as well. You also want to make sure your dog is fully grown before you run with it. It's like with children and stuff like that. If they're doing heavy weights before their bones are developed, running with dogs and stuff can actually create some really bad joint concerns before they're fully grown. So just be aware of that, especially the bigger breed dogs. You don't want to be destroying those hips or backs, shoulders, things like that. They can also pick up infectious diseases. So if you're not having things done, like all of the vaccinations done before taking your dog out, they can actually pick up some quite serious diseases like parvo, distemper and stuff like that. So if you think it might be cute to go for a walk with your 8-week-old puppy, think again, mainly because, those diseases are very, very nasty, and they can kill your dog very quickly or your puppy very quickly. Yeah.
Now, I'm not a dog person at all, so I would assume I know, but okay. Side note: I got bitten by dogs when I was much, much younger, so I've always had a fear. But now at least I can walk on the same side of a road. Sorry, footpath as a dog. Side note. I would be under the assumption that all dog breeds can run. Is that the case? Like, can certain breeds run better than others? Do bigger dogs run further than smaller dogs? Like, how can you tell?
Okay, so I guess the first thing that you want to look at is what sort of breed they are. So certain dogs like huskies and stuff like that, yes, they are designed and bred for running, and they are bred for running in a continuous environment. However, you've got to then look at things like they're designed for running in cooler environments. So if you're living in Queensland at 35-degree heat, don't think that they can just continuously run like they would in the snow. You've got your brachycephalic breed, so that's just short-nosed breed of dogs. So you like your pugs, your Boston Terriers, French bulldogs, things like that. Just bulldogs in general. They've actually got a very, very short airway. So their nasal cavity between their nose and their like everything is all just shortened up. So they don't actually have a lot of air intake going in, and that means they overheat quickly and they can't breathe as quickly or as efficiently as a long-nosed dog. So it's a bit like running with a cold yourself. Probably not the best idea. Things like dash hounds and stuff, like the long back dogs, they can actually get really bad disc problems, so IVDD, which is intravertebral disc disease. The length of their body, they actually need another set of legs underneath them almost just to stop their back bowing in. So you've got to be aware of those sort of breeds. So again, definitely talk to your vet first and have a look. If you're going to buy a dog that you want for running, make sure you buy a dog that is actually designed for running. Don't think that you're going to just go and buy yourself a nice little cavoodle and it's going to run 15 Ks with you nice and easily, because that's not going to happen. So definitely research the breed of dog that suits your temperament and your physical abilities that you want your dog to be able to do.
It sounds like I'm sitting around the dinner table. This is the sort of conversations we have at dinner all the time, Tara.
Sorry, Tim.
That's all right. And I already know the answer to some of these anyway. But is there some basic commands that our listeners should know before they start taking actions with their dogs? So any specific commands or control training or behavioural type stuff that they need to know with their dogs, and how to control their dogs when they're running before they start?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, older dogs, you probably already have got them fairly well leash trained or harness trained. But when you're looking at training your dog to go running with you, even if it's an older dog and they haven't ever run with you before, goes back to you with Milton, Tony. He hasn't run with you before, so he's not aware of what is expected of him. So when you're teaching your dog to run, the best thing that you can do is keep them on a leash that allows them to be close to you so that you can control them. So a retractable leash, the ones that, on those wind-up things, they're not the best ones to teach your dog how to run on, that's for sure. Keep them on a controlled leash. Harnesses are preferred, especially because as a dog with a collar, if it stops in a hurry, or a choker chain, if you're running and they have to stop in a hurry, you're obviously pulling on their windpipe, which is then creating bruising or can damage their esophagus. So think about it yourself. If you stop in a hurry, if you've got a collar on your neck, it's going to be the same as your dog. You can also cause neck damage, back damage, many other concerns. So definitely master walking on a leash with your dog, and getting them to learn commands such as sit, stay, this way, right, left, things like that, stop, and just basic commands like that. This way is a really important one, especially if you are out and about with your dog and you need to distract them in a hurry, and they're off sniffing somewhere and you want them to be just coming back to you. This way is a really good way to get their attention there, and they look at you. So, and they know to move on. So, yeah, definitely basic commands, it's worthwhile. Hiring a professional dog trainer, if you need help with that, is really recommended. And now anyone can call themselves a dog trainer. You do not need any sort of licenses or recommendations or anything like that. However, looking at people that are actually registered as dog trainers is really, really important. So make sure that they're a qualified dog trainer, not just I want to be a dog trainer, so I'll teach next door's dog how to run, because I've got experience in it. Definitely employ a proper dog trainer if you do not know how to do it yourself.
Tara, we often talk about people taking up running for the first time and to do a bit of a stage process. Don't go out too fast, take it easy, consistency before intensity, all of that sort of stuff. Was it the same with running? Is it the same sort of process you should follow with your pet? And I guess that leads me to, how do they fuel for their run? Should they eat before the run? So a bit of a two-parter for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So eating before a run or eating too soon after a run is definitely not recommended for a dog. So half an hour after a run, or half an hour to an hour after a run is when you should be feeding your dog, and about the same sort of distance before a run. And that's to allow that their digestive system has got everything out of, that they've digested everything. Larger breed dogs can get what's called bloat or GDV, and that's where their stomach literally turns into top of itself and is requiring surgery. So that happens intermittently because of running, not just because of running, but exercise can exacerbate that problem. But it's a bit like yourself. If you run on a full stomach, you're going to feel sick. If you eat too quickly after running, you're going to feel sick yourself as well. So it can cause vomiting, diarrhea, all of those things that you don't want. And when it comes down to running, yeah, definitely warming up beforehand with your dog is definitely recommended. So, and same as your cool down. So you'll see the dogs at Parkrun sometimes where they're running around and they're crying at the start and they're yapping and they're barking and stuff like that. They're eager to go. However, going for a little walk beforehand or a little warm-up run with those dogs beforehand can help alleviate some of that excited, nervous energy. It's a bit like ourselves when we're on the start line if we haven't got rid of some of that nervous energy ourselves. So yeah, definitely warm up and cool down with your dogs as well. Yep.
Except they're allowed to poop and wee as they're running and nobody cares.
Oh, please pick that up. Not the wee, but please pick up the poo. So yes.
Wow. Excellent. So Tara, us humans take precautions when we're running at night, like wearing headlamps and things like that. Should you do something similar with dogs?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is reflective leashes, reflective harnesses. There is lights that you can attach to your dog. There's a lot of things like that are definitely worthwhile. The reason that you do that is that's protecting your dog as well from people that may be cycling past them, cars that may not see them, other people that are walking or running. You can actually identify that there is another thing that's beside you. So a lot of people get scared of dogs, and you're one of those, Lucia. If you were walking at night and you could see that there was a person but weren't aware that there was a dog, then all of a sudden a dog brushed up against you, that would be quite a scary thought for you yourself, even if that dog's not aggressive. So yeah, as a safety precaution for yourself and for your dog, definitely put some sort of light up device on them. Even if it's not a common thing that you run with your dog at nighttime, the glow sticks are a really good idea that you can put around their collars or around their harnesses. So, because you can buy packets of them for $2 for 100 of them, and you can just put them around the dog as well. So that's nice and easy.
Cool. Tara, I was just literally talking to you about poop. So this is a bit of a shit question,
Oh,
Tony's not the only one with puns. I see many runners when they're running are not keeping an eye on their dog's behaviours, and their dog's trying to do a poo while they're trying to run. The lead's pulling them along. The dog's dropping poo on the ground as it's running, trying to limp over the top of it or hop over the top of it. What are some tips and tricks, I guess, for runners and owners of dogs to understand those behaviours of dogs pooing and when they need to poo and making sure they have poo bags and all the rest of it?
Yeah, sure. So the best way to do that is learning your own dog's behaviours. I mean, you yourself know when you're going to need to go to the toilet. A lot of dogs are the same when they go for a run. They know that, say, for example, you go for a 7 o'clock run every single morning and your dog goes to the toilet at 7:15. You're aware of those habits, so be aware. Or if your dog hasn't gone to the toilet before going for your run, just be aware that your dog's probably going to want to go. It's like a human. Bowels move, everything moves, and they have no control, well, no more control of it than humans do. And they see the world as their toilet because that's what they've been taught. So if you do feel your dog slowing down, please be aware of why your dog is slowing down. Now, that can not just be for the fact that they may need to go to the toilet. It may be that they're injured. It may be that they're caught up with somebody else. It may actually also be that there is they're warning you about something else. So dogs usually will slow down because they're social creatures. They want to talk to other people, and the way that they will talk to other dogs, the way they do that is obviously by sniffing. So if they've smelt a scent that they think that they want to mark or go over top of, they will stop and defecate or urinate over top of that as well. So just be aware, if you feel a leash tension change, your dog's probably going to the toilet. So if you don't feel that change and your dog hasn't been to the toilet, just be aware that they've mastered the way that they can go to the toilet on the run, and you probably need to keep an eye on that yourself as a owner.
Can I just ask a secondary question to that? Sorry. Now, this is potentially going down a rabbit hole. How we've spoken about doing our bowel movement pre-race. Is there a way to kind of force a dog or they go for a run?
Yeah, look, it'd be nice to say yes, you can do that. Again, it can be as easy as just taking your dog for a warm-up run or a warm-up walk beforehand, letting them sniff certain particular areas. So a dog's olfactory senses, which is their smelling senses, and what stimulates them to go to the toilet, that can be done by just taking them for a little walk around, and that can actually stimulate that need to want to go. So walking them around, instead of sitting around talking to your friends at Parkrun or whatever you need to do, think about spending another 15 minutes just taking your dog for a walk, getting rid of some of that excess energy, warming them up, and also helping those bowel movements happen before you want to go for a run. That can help, yes.
Okay, it gets even more complicated now, Tara, and I think you've almost hardly answered this question as well, just quietly. But I know often I'll set out on a run, and for whatever reason, don't complete the run. So whether it's I pull back or I walk back or I drop the distance. Normally Sharon understands when that's happening because I'm behind her, I'm struggling, I'm whinging, I've got the inner sook going on, you know. What are some of the signs that potentially a dog would have if they were feeling that, hey, this just isn't working for me today, and what are you doing dragging me out to do this run?
Yeah, so the best way to look at it is obviously you know your dog's behaviours and your dog, his personality or her personality the best. So obviously age has got a lot to factor into that. So if your dog is old, think about things like osteoarthritis and stuff like that, or just age as you get older. We all know as we're aging, we don't go as well unless you're Jennifer Callett, who listened to that episode and you'll know what I'm talking about. But people like Jennifer Callender, the abnormality, most of us are actually getting slower as we get older. Dogs are the same. So just be aware when your dog starts to slow down, it is telling you, I can't go at the speed that you want to go at anymore. So most dogs will run beside you or slightly in front, depending on how you've trained them. If your dog is actually lagging well behind you and you can feel that tension on the lead behind you, it's probably time for you to slow it down because your dog is just not enjoying it anymore. And if your dog's not enjoying it, it's probably not a good idea to keep going either. It can cause some severe problems to your dog. Now, if your dog's overweight, if your dog's unhealthy, it could show signs that it's sick. There's so many different reasons why your dog may be slowing down. But yeah, always listen to your dog. It may need to just go and have a drink. But you need to watch your dog's signs and signals. And most of the time that is by going behind you when it doesn't want to run, or its body is very tense. So you know yourself when you tense up when you're running and your shoulders are up and your head's down and you're just not got that gait happening. If you see your dog having an abnormal gait or it's just looking uncomfortable, probably time to pull it back for the dog.
Just on that one, Tara, I was just thinking about it as you're speaking, and now I've forgotten what I was going to say. But I remember what I'm going to say. I guess it's important to remember that when you're running with a dog, would it be fair to say it's the dog's run? It's not your run, and you shouldn't be thinking of it, oh, well, this is my long run day, I'm taking the dog with me for my long run. It's really the dog going for a run, and it's a bonus session for you as a runner. Is that the way to think of it?
Yeah, look, personally, that's how I would look at it from a medical point of view as well. Dogs are, as I said before, social creatures. The way that they communicate, you'll notice a dog will pee against a lamppost and the next dog will come along and sniff it and then do the same thing. They're marking their olfactory senses so that they can say, oh, I've been here, hi, how you going? It's a bit like text messaging each other. So dogs on their walk, they're coming out of their backyard or front yard or wherever they are. Don't forget, they're confined to this one little space probably 95% of the day. So to be able to get out and about and explore a whole new world is really exciting for them. So some dogs, if they're walked several times a day or a couple of times a day, and they're designed for running, so your breeds like your Huskies and your Border Collies and all of that, and they actually just want to go for a run, then that's fine. Whereas we used to own a Beagle and all she wanted to do was sniff. So it was definitely her run, walk, whatever she wanted to do. If she wanted to run, she would run. If she wanted to sniff and walk, that's what it was. I think listen to your dog. If your dog wants to just walk and sniff, do that. And I know a lot of people get very, very frustrated that they can't walk at their 9.5 minute kilometres because the dog's stopping and sniffing. If it takes you 13 minutes per kilometre and your dog's happy, drop your dog at home and go off and do something yourself. So if you do one loop with your dog, drop the dog and then come back, do your own stuff afterwards. But yes, it is primarily for the dog. It's their social outing. You can go to the shops or work. The dogs can't.
Thanks.
Awesome, thanks. Now we're experiencing very hot summers in both Queensland and New South Wales. We've given tips in the past on how humans should run in the heat. What tips can you give our listeners for dogs running in the heat?
Yeah, so again, if it's the middle of the day and it's 35 degrees heat, just because you've got the ability to do that, that doesn't mean your dog's got the ability to do that. Dogs have actually got the layer of fur over top of them. They can cool themselves down through panting. However, some breeds of dogs don't cool themselves down as efficiently as other breeds of dogs. So as I was saying before, things like huskies and stuff like that, you've got a big triple coat on there on that dog. So that dog is designed for the cooler environments. Also, if the road is really, really hot, you've got shoes on to protect your feet. Dogs have only got the paws of their pads of their paws. So I've actually dealt several times with dogs that have actually had all their feet taken off from the heat, where they've had third-degree burns from owners just not being aware that walking the dog on the sand in the heat, concrete roads, certain things, it's way too hot. So highly recommend taking water with you, ensuring that your dog is hydrated at all times. You've got collapsible water bowls that are nice and easy to clip onto your belt and carry with a water bottle. Highly recommend walking them in the shade if you can only walk them during the hot times. Otherwise, morning or night is obviously preferred for the dog. And if you can try and avoid those really hot roads, it's really good. Same as the cold. So if it's a really cold, snowy day, obviously we don't get them here, but think about frostbite or you running on a cold environment on bare feet. Or icy roads. Like even though they've got their nails, it's still slippery and it's still dangerous for them. And there is the risk of hip dislocations and back problems from slipping and falling. And they can get frostbite as well. So think about certain breeds, as I said, huskies, no problems. But then you have something like a little short hair Dalmatian or something like that. That's not really going to be very happy in the cold. So look again at the breeds of the dog that you've got, but don't just protect their feet is really, really important. A lot of people don't realise how important it is to protect their feet.
Awesome. Thanks, Tara.
All right. And Tara, lastly from me, I like to stretch out. I know we all like to stretch out after we go for a run. I know we like to get massages once a month or so, and we look after our bodies. We've talked about that numerous times on this show, that we look after our bodies through strength conditioning, massaging, all that sort of stuff. Quite often I'll put some ointments on, Voltaren or some other ointments to help treat sore and tired muscles. Can you do that for your dog? Should you do that for your dog? Are there certain things you should be considering when you're putting ointments and things onto your dogs? And, is massage and those sort of things good for your dogs as well?
Yeah, so great question. Definitely cool your dog down after a run, as I've discussed, but you can get physio for your dog. So if you're noticing any abnormalities with your dog's gait or concerns, obviously get it vet checked first to make sure it's not a structural issue. But there is physio, there is dry needling. There's a lot of things that you can actually do for your dog. There's water therapy, there's water treadmills. Swimming is a really great alternative or a cool down for your dog to loosen up those joints and get those movement happening as well. There is medication that you can give, especially as your dog is getting older. So with humans, there's your fish oils and magnesium and stuff like that we have to help with the cramping. There's definitely medications that you can have that is over the counter. So things like Foresight, not promoting any particular brands here, but there is definitely green mussel shell extract and stuff like that. That all helps with the joint movement and stuff. Don't use any human medications or ointments on your dog. Things like Voltaren contains ibuprofen, which is actually absorbed through the skin when you're rubbing it onto you. And ibuprofen within a dog will actually cause kidney damage, and enough of it can actually kill your dog. So please don't do Voltaren or anything like that if you notice that your dog is uncomfortable. Same as physio creams and stuff like that. Don't use any of those sort of things. You can, however, if your dog has been adjusted to it or acclimatized to it, giving them a massage yourself. So you don't actually need anything for that. Just rubbing their backs, rubbing their hips, rubbing their legs, and just giving them a massage like you would for your own legs and stuff is absolutely perfect. So Wayne, our remedial massage. He actually sits down every single night and gives his dogs a massage every single night. So they clamour to go onto his knee so that they can get their massages every night. But yes, no, massages are great if your dog will allow you to do it, but please be gentle with it as well. You don't want to be creating problems that aren't there beforehand. But if you do notice any physical injuries with your dog, they're limping, please don't keep running with them. A lot of the time I do see dogs that have got cruciate problems, and you can just see it as they're running along, and you just go, please stop running with your dog. You're creating more problems. They have OCD in the shoulders. They've got hip problems. You just need to be aware that if your dog is limping, it's in pain. Dogs don't fake these things. So take your dog to the vet, get it assessed as to what that pain is. If it's muscular, yep, definitely take it to the physio, get some remedial massage that you can do yourself. There is people that do remedial massage on the dogs, and I think Tony can attest to that for us. So, yeah.
Yep.
Yes, a previous guest of ours, Nikki Francis, does healing hounds, so it certainly is a thing. Hey, Tara, have you got time? Well, of course, you're going to find time to do a quick, fast few. I've been watching Tim type furiously down here at the bottom of the run sheet, so there is the fast few. So remember, fast question, fast answer. What would be your top 3 breeds of running dogs?
Depends on how far you want to take your dog. So if you want to take your dog for a long run, like what Tim and I do, you want to make sure that your dog has got endurance and agility to do that. So you're looking at things like Kelpies, Border Collies, Huskies. Those sort of animals are fantastic for long distance. If you're looking for a short distance park running dog, you're probably pretty good with like cavoodles. You're pretty much good with any sort of dog apart from your brachycephalic breeds, so your pugs, your French bulldogs, all of those sort of things. If you want a nice little walking dog, then yeah, go for your pugs, dachshunds, things like that.
Excellent. How far is too far for a dog?
Again, breed dependent. I have seen dogs run marathons before as assistance dogs. And that was a Border Collie. Obviously, that dog has had pads on its feet, booties, and it had been trained to do that distance. The owner was also running with water and was constantly hydrating their dog. I think, in all honesty, don't forget dogs run usually in short bursts. So even things like Border Collies and Kelpies, they'll run for short bursts, stop, and then run again. So if you're running long distance with a dog, it's an endurance thing. It's like us with humans. I don't think there really is too far to run with a dog, dependent on the dog breed. But as long as you build up that endurance and the strength for the dog.
And you mentioned water. So how much water should a dog drink pre-race or pre-run, during the run, and then after the run?
So water should always be freely available to your dog before and after a race at all times. And now that just has to be room temperature water. Please don't put ice or anything like that or cold water for your dog. It's actually not beneficial for them in any way, cause health concerns. When you are running with them, every probably 5 Ks on a normal run. If it's a hotter day, probably every 2.5 to 3 Ks would be ideal for that water situation. It's a bit like a human. If you feel that you're thirsty or if you see your dog panting with their tongue out and they're breathing heavy, please stop. Give your dog some water or at least offer it. If it doesn't want it, that's fine. But if it does want it, let your dog drink. Obviously, when you're running, you don't want to be letting it drink excessively because otherwise it's going to vomit it up as it's running. But you do want to offer water frequently like you would with yourself. So think of a dog as yourself almost.
Awesome. And the last question is for Tim. What is a dog's favourite book?
I'm not sure, Tony. I think it would be Harry Potter.
All right. Hey, thanks, Tara. It's really been great to hear your expertise, your experience around this subject. And I know that our listeners would have gained some important knowledge to ensure that they're not doing the wrong thing by their dog when they think or they believe that they're doing the right thing by taking them out for a run. Some of your advice today hopefully has been, well, we know will have been incredibly valuable. So thank you. So before we finish up, as always, we'll get a tip from Tim. Tim, what's your tip for the week?
Thanks, Tony. My tip this week is not dog related, but again, along the similar sort of lines that Tara was talking about there, about listening to your body or listening to the dog. So I'm going to give you a story from my long run this weekend. I talked about I knocked over 21 Ks on the weekend. And it was one of my faster runs. I started off really well. I was feeling great, running about 5:25 pace at a quite comfortable pace. But at about 9.8 kilometers into the run, I started to feel my left hamstring tighten up a little bit. I felt I could have probably kept running, but would have likely ended up, if I kept going, only for it to tighten up more and possibly tear. So I decided I'd listen to the body. I walked it out, stretched a little bit, ran a little bit more, and then it came back again with some more pain. So I walked and stretched it out for about a kilometre for the second time round. And then I was able to run back from there the last sort of 9Ks or so at about a 5:55, about 5:45 to 6 minute pace, and ended up with overall still a respectable time. But I guess for me, my initial thought was to push on. It's just a bit of cramping, a bit of tightness. It'll go away if I keep running. That was my initial thought, but then I actually stopped, thought about it, listened to my body, and I'm thinking, why would I want to push it on? I've still got months to go of training before I get into the serious races that I want to be doing. If I get injured now, it's only going to lead to more time on the injury waiting list and getting frustrated by being injured. So I actually listened to my body, weighed it all up, and made the call to ease it back. And I still got back in time with a reasonable amount of time. So listen to your body. I know we say it week in, week out every time, but weigh up the pros and cons. At the end of the day, do you really feel that you need to get injured on that training run? No, probably in most instances, the answer is no, it's a training run. So ease it up, take it easy, relax. And if you have to walk, you have to walk. There's always next week to come back and have another crack at it.
Absolutely. Great advice, Tim. Now, before I hand over to Lucia to tell us what's happening next week, Abbott's have released now the provisional stars that were given to the World Age Group participants who ran Sydney last year. And they now have the 7-star Hall of Fame. And it's really quite interesting because there is only 567-star medalists or what 7-star finishes. That's the term I was looking for. Thanks, Tim. And 2 of them have been previous guests. We've got Jen Kellett, who, of course, is a 7-star finisher, and Kimi Tudjman. And there's only 33 Australians that are now 7-star finishers, and I think Tim and Tara know them all. So just about.
All
right. Don't know about all of them, but we know a fair few of them.
Yeah. We know 30 out of the 33.
So it's good to see that those provisional stars are now full stars, and we look forward, all 4 of us, becoming part of that list of 7-star finishers when we run Sydney. So
it was interesting. I went into my profile on the Abbott's site to see if I could register for Sydney. You know how before you go in to do a star, you can normally register. They haven't opened that up yet for Sydney. So at some stage, I guess in the near future, you'll be able to register to say you are running in Sydney, and then they can link your entry to the star, and then obviously when you finish, you get your star come up straight away. So hang in there, people. We'll be able to register soon, I would think.
Absolutely. Hey, Luch, what's happening next week?
Well, thank you, Tony. So next week, we're going to be sharing our tips and tricks about one of our questions we ask our guests as part of now the Fast 7. So running up and down hills. So we all have different opinions. We talk and especially with talk turning towards the Sydney Marathon and the large number of hills on the course, we're hoping that the episode will give you all the information that you need to know and how to get over any hill that you may come across, from maintaining a positive mindset and to improving technique. This is an episode that we're all going to have a bit of fun with, so tune in. It's going to be another one in which you're not going to want to miss, guys.
Hills. Sending shivers down my spine already, Lucia, but I'm sure it will be a great episode. That ends our show for tonight. Another awesome show. Thank you so much, Tara, for sharing your knowledge and insight. And I know, as I said, many listeners will have got some amazing insights into their pets that they go running with. As usual, thanks to the marathon mates who are surrounding me on the screen that I'm looking at. I hope you've got a good week of running ahead. And I look forward again, as always, joining you next week. We love recording these podcasts for you, our wonderful listeners. We love hearing your feedback, and we once again did get some feedback. And thank you, Vic, for putting your comments once again on our Spotify podcast. It is always great to see your feedback. And Vic's pretty much a weekly contributor to the show at the moment. So thank you so much, Victoria. So we love your feedback, so please keep sharing wherever you're listening to it. Add it to our YouTube, into our Spotify. Send us a message via any of our social media channels. You can find the links to them in our link that's in the show notes. And you can also send us an email at happyrunning@flyingrunner.com. One of the things that Tim has put down on the run sheet is maybe you could share a photo with you and of you running with your dog, and that would be an awesome thing to share on our Facebook page. So video of this episode will be available at Spotify and YouTube, and audio it will be on Apple, Amazon, and just about every podcast platform out there. So remember, every step forward is a victory. Lace up, hit the road. And we're going to catch you on the very next episode of the Flying Runr podcast. Until then, happy running.
Happy running.
Happy running.